So may I ask this question? Are you still a private label seller? Because I know in the past you have been. Are you still currently selling your brand on Amazon?
Technically, yes.
Yeah.
Technically, yes, but it takes up a very small percentage of my time. So I guess in reality, I probably say no. I keep my foot in, but it's not really my main area anymore.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about Fortuna, because this is quite an exciting project as well for you. Really be interesting for the listeners today. So can you tell me a little bit more about your role and also about what investment bankers look for when talking to a potential seller of their brand, their business?
Yeah, so most people don't understand what an investment bank is when it comes to e-commerce or in fact anything. People assume we fund businesses or we buy businesses. Well, we don't do any of that. We actually help prepare businesses for sale. So we work with 7 and 8 figure businesses to maximize their exit. So we work with them on the financial side, on the presentation side, and then we offer privately to a select number of buyers that we feel may be interested in that business. And so we go through a whole process to prepare a business for sale, and we've been able to show that going through our process, we're able to get between 30 and 60% more for an e-commerce business than they would if they went directly to an aggregator.
Yeah, I'll go back what that difference is between the between yourselves and
because we work purely on the seller side. Our job, because we work like a real estate agent, we take a percentage of the sale, right? So we're really upfront about that. We take a percentage of the exit, so it's in our best interest to get you as much money as possible, right?
Yeah.
And if we don't think we can do that, then we won't take on the business because we don't charge any fees up front. We work purely on commission. Mm-hmm. So unless we think that we can really do a great job for the business that we're representing, we won't take them on, and we're really realistic about that.
Yeah. And is there any kind of metrics to consider when a business is thinking about selling? Like, do they need to get to a certain revenue or certain profit margin, or what else might you consider?
Look, buyers are looking for solid businesses, right? So your number one thing you really want to have, what's your point of difference? Are you another Me Too seller, or do you have a brand with some kind of a moat? And by moat, I don't know if you know what I mean by that. It's like, what protection do you have? Do you have a connection with your audience that none of the other brands do have? Do you have, a point of difference in your product? What's your IP? Do you have your IP protection locked down? Mm-hmm. For us to work with you, we look for, $1 million, $1.5 million in turnover US. Mm-hmm. And most buyers are looking for 20% or more in terms of profit, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Is any sort of SKUs at all within the product range? Is there a minimum?
Look, tight. Between 5 and 15 is good. Most businesses have like a hero SKU. Once you get into the thousands, it becomes difficult because the buyers, don't want to be spending, hours and hours and hours working through, thousands and even hundreds of SKUs. Like we've got a client that I've been working with here in Australia for a little while now that, he came to us and he's got a great business, but it's got a couple of hundred SKUs. And we basically said, look, we want to represent you and we will represent you, but you need to go away and tidy it up and really just focus on, your top, it's that old 80-20, right? You want to focus on your top SKUs that are making you profit margin. Because otherwise, if you've got hundreds of SKUs that you're private labeling, you're diluting where you can invest your money, right? Because you're holding inventory. You're holding inventory for all these SKUs that are sitting there, so your turnover of cash flow is tight, and that makes it difficult to grow. Okay, so you really want to keep your inventory tight, your SKUs tight to the profitable, and don't be scared to cut. A lot of people, we will get so attached to our SKU children, right? And I know that I'll be guilty of that. But sometimes you just got to say goodbye to those ones that are not profitable, that are not selling fast enough, so that you can divert that cash flow into things that maybe you might spend it more on advertising, or you might want to put your hero SKUs into new marketplaces in order to grow. Right? Work with your best performers.
Thank you. And along the theme of embrace equity, is there is there like a good 50-50 split between the sellers that come to you, or the businesses that come to you? Is there any kind of, is there an equal gender split, would you say?
Look, it's really interesting. Despite what we see on stages and even on podcasts, I think the spread of sellers is very very equitable. In fact, possibly more. I mean, certainly at the events that Chris and I ran in Australia here last year, we ran 2 mastermind events. Both of them had, I think, probably 60% women. We actually had more women in the room than men.
Excellent.
So, and, in my role in Fortunate, I talk probably 50-50. Mm-hmm. So I think, for the reasons that I mentioned before, for women's lifestyles, I think the Amazon and e-commerce is such a great opportunity if you're entrepreneurial. Look, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Okay, it is. You got to have guts of steel. I won't say you've got to have balls, but you've got to have guts of steel, because there are downs. Things happen, and you've got to have that mindset. I think in e-commerce and entrepreneurship in general, mindset is the most important thing, because the stuff you can learn. You can learn how to do stuff. But it's who you are as an entrepreneur and who you are as a human being is what you need to really decide if this business is for you. Because as you know, there's lots of downs as well as amazing ups.
Absolutely. Which leads me beautifully onto the next question, because I see you as a true entrepreneur. Absolutely. So please, can you give us a whistle-stop tour of your entrepreneurial journey? So I believe you started out in physical retail, didn't you? Is that correct? So if you could tell me a little bit more about that and what you enjoy.
Look, I have to be an entrepreneur. I don't have a choice because I'm unemployable. Every job I've ever, every proper job I've ever had, I've been fired from because, I can't keep my mouth shut and tell them how to do it better. Although, I'm not really good at doing what I'm told. So, I pretty much have always been an entrepreneur. It runs in my blood. My mother's side of the family, we were from the former Soviet Union, Ukraine. On my mother's side of the family, historically, every female has been in prison for racketeering, which is basically being an entrepreneur. back when it was not allowed. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a little bit in the blood. I started when I was, still in primary school, making, rings out of wires and selling them in the schoolyard for 2 cents each. And, that got shut down pretty quickly. So that was my first entrepreneurial venture. But, most recently, when I came back from my overseas travels in 1994, I got into physical retail. So I decided to open a frock shop and was selling clothes, which I absolutely adored. And then I had a child out of wedlock, shock horror, and became a single mother. And it sort of got to a stage where my child, didn't like me working 6-7 days a week, and did not like going to school holiday clubs when I had to work. And so I started looking around for online, opportunities. And I tried a few different things while I had the retail store, to be able to transition online. I think I was a little bit ahead of myself. I started an online baby clothes boutique in 2000. So, it was a little bit early. And then in 2015, I came across the Amazon opportunity. I actually came across it earlier, but I wasn't ready for it until 2015. And that sort of like really changed my life in the most beautiful way, because I was able to take all of the things that I already knew about retail and sourcing and manufacturing, which I was already doing in the clothes business. And then I was already traveling to China, and I was already, manufacturing in China. I was already shipping things. Now I was shipping them to Australia, but I understood shipping. So for me, the missing piece was the Amazon bit. And so when I sort of saw, the Amazon and FBA, oh my God, because again, I'd already had a baby clothes website, so I knew what it was like to pack stuff in my garage to go to the post office every day. And I was like, oh God, if I don't have to do that, it'd be amazing. So FBA for me was just a revelation. And, I took everything I had learned from my retail business and my baby clothes business and put it into my Amazon business. And I was able to make a lot of money pretty quickly. And, go through all those obstacles that people don't tell you about when they're selling you the courses, like cash flow. Because when you're growing fast, as I was, I think I made my first million in 14 months. In order to fund that, you need to be able to have access to extra funds, which again, most people who are selling training courses don't tell you. It's like, oh, you can make this much per month, that much per month. It's like, well, that's great. But in order to do that, you've got to have this much inventory, right? So that's something that, for any new people that are listening, that I would really encourage you to research further is how much money you're going to need in order to grow, and how are you going to fund that? Okay, now when I started, I still had my retail business. So I wasn't taking any money out of my Amazon business, plus also the cash flow from my retail business was helping me in my Amazon business, until it was the other way around. And then I ended up, after a year, I actually closed my retail store and just went boots and all into Amazon.